The coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago. I didn't care. My name is David Grant, and at 3:47 in the morning on the anniversary of my daughter's death, I was doing what I always did, listening to the universe ignore me. The SETI facility in New Mexico hummed with the white noise of 1,000 receivers pulling down electromagnetic whispers from distant stars. Most nights, it was just static. Beautiful, meaningless static. The kind that let me forget for a few hours that Emma had been gone for exactly 9 years. I reached for the bottle of bourbon tucked in my desk drawer. My hand was halfway there when the primary monitor screamed. Not literally, but the spike in the waveform was so violent, so impossibly sharp, that I jerked backward and knocked the bottle over. Amber liquid spread across my notes as I stared at the display. Asteroid 16 Psyche. 2.5 astronomical units out, sitting in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. A dead rock we'd scanned 1,000 times, and now it was broadcasting. I killed the alert klaxon and isolated the signal. My fingers moved automatically, decades of training taking over while my brain struggled to catch up. The signal was strong, focused, deliberate, and then I heard my own voice. The discovery that changed everything. When we first detected the transmission from Psyche, I thought it was equipment failure. But here we are, 3 years later, and I stopped breathing. That was me. My voice, my cadence, my slight lisp on the S sounds that I'd never quite grown out of. But I'd never said those words. Never given that interview. I checked the timestamp embedded in the signal. The interview was dated April 18th, 2028. 3 years from now. My hands started shaking. I ran every diagnostic I knew. Equipment check, signal verification, atmospheric interference analysis, Doppler calculations. Everything came back clean. The signal was real. The source was Psyche, and the content was impossible. I queued up the recording and played it again. My future self kept talking about the discovery, about how it had fractured our understanding of causality itself. The interviewer asked questions I couldn't hear, but my responses painted a picture of something vast and terrible that we'd found out there. Then the signal shifted. Another voice. A news anchor I recognized from CNN reporting on a climate summit in 2050. Then a radio drama from 2075. A sports broadcast from 2093. All Earth transmissions, all dated years or decades ahead of now. I grabbed my phone and called Dr. Helena Marsh, the facility director. She answered on the 5th ring, voice thick with sleep. This better be good, Grant. Psyche is broadcasting. My voice cracked. It's sending back Earth signals from the future. Silence. Then a long sigh. David, it's the anniversary. I know today is hard for you. Why don't you go home? Get some sleep. I'm not drunk. I wasn't. The bottle had spilled before I'd touched it. Helena, I'm looking at a waveform analysis right now. Multiple stations are receiving this. Check the network logs. Another pause. I heard sheets rustling, a laptop booting up. Then her breath caught. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm on my way. Don't touch anything. Don't call anyone. She hung up. I sat in the blue glow of my monitors and listened to Earth's future pour down from the sky. A presidential address from 2067, a wedding announcement from 2081, the evacuation warning from 2014 that made my blood go cold. Seek shelter immediately. The atmospheric cascade has reached critical threshold. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not. The signal dissolved into static, then reformed into something else. A children's program from 2056, a traffic report from 2099, and then, buried in the noise like a splinter in flesh, I heard her. Dad, if you're listening to this, Emma, my Emma, but older. Her voice had matured, dropped into a lower register, but I knew it the way you know your own heartbeat. Dad, they told me you might hear this someday, that the signals go back as well as forward. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know if I'm really me or just God, this is so hard to explain. But if you can hear this, I want you to know I forgive you. It wasn't your fault. None of it was. My vision blurred. Emma had died at 8 years old. Leukemia. I'd been at a conference when she'd slipped into her final coma. I'd missed it by 40 minutes. The guilt had been eating me alive ever since. But this voice belonged to a woman, 25, maybe 30 years old, a version of Emma that had never existed. The recording continued. They say time doesn't work the way we think, that everything is happening at once, and we just experience it sequentially because our brains can't handle the alternative. I hope that's true. I hope somewhere, somehow, we got more time together. I love you, Dad. The signal cut to static, then reformed into something that made my skin crawl. A single voice, not old, not young, speaking directly as if it knew I was listening. Hello, David. We've been waiting for you to hear us. I scrambled backward, chair toppling. The voice continued, patient and inevitable. You have questions. We have answers. But first, you need to understand what you're really hearing. These aren't predictions, David. They're memories. And very soon you're going to have to choose which ones become real. The signal died. Every monitor went dark simultaneously. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing the room in red. Then, just as suddenly, everything powered back up. The primary display showed nothing but cosmic background radiation. Psyche had gone silent. I stood there, heart hammering, staring at the recordings I'd captured. 47 minutes of impossible transmissions. Proof that would either revolutionize physics or end my career. Headlights swept through the parking lot outside. Helena was here, and behind her, I could see more vehicles. She'd called someone. Multiple someones. I looked at the recording cue one more time, found the timestamp where Emma's voice had spoken to me, copied it to a secure drive, and slipped it into my pocket. Whatever was about to happen, whatever machinery of government or military was about to descend on this discovery, I needed to keep that. Proof that my daughter's voice had reached back through time to tell me she forgave me, even if it was impossible, even if it was a lie. The doors burst open. Helena rushed in, followed by people in suits I didn't recognize. They moved with purpose, already confiscating equipment, pulling data logs. One of them, a woman with steel-gray hair and a face like carved granite, walked straight to me. Her ID badge said, General Victoria Cross, Department of Defense. Dr. Grant, she said, we need to talk about what you just heard, and more importantly, we need to talk about what you're going to do next. I met her gaze and saw something there that chilled me more than the impossible signal. She already knew, they'd been listening too, and from the haunted look in her eyes, they'd heard things that terrified them. How long? I asked. We detected the first transmissions 6 weeks ago, she said quietly. We've been trying to understand them, classify them, control them. She paused. We failed. As of 20 minutes ago, every major observatory on Earth confirmed reception. The signals are global now, and in about 3 hours the sun comes up and the world learns that the future is calling. She pulled out a tablet and showed me a news feed, time stamped for 7 a.m. Eastern. The headline was already written. First contact or temporal anomaly. Mysterious signals from Asteroid raise questions about causality itself. The world is about to change, Dr. Grant, General Cross said, and we need people who understand what we're facing, people who've already heard the voice on the other end. She leaned closer. Tell me, did it speak to you directly? Did it know your name? I thought about lying, thought about the recording in my pocket, Emma's voice telling me she forgave me. Yes, I said finally. It knew exactly who I was. The general nodded slowly, as if confirming something she'd suspected. Then you're coming with us. Pack your essentials. We leave for Washington in 1 hour. Where are we going? Classified location, but I can tell you this much. She glanced at the darkened monitor where Psyche's signal had been. We're assembling a team. Scientists, military, specialists, because those signals aren't just broadcasting randomly. They're showing us something, a pattern. And at the end of that pattern, 6 months from now, there's an event. What kind of event? Her expression went hollow. The kind that ends everything. Unless we figure out what that thing on Psyche really is, and why it's trying so hard to talk to us. Washington looked like a war zone, not from bombs or bullets, but from panic. I watched from the passenger window of the military transport as we flew over the Capitol at dawn. The highways were clogged with vehicles, headlights forming rivers of light as people fled the cities. Where they thought they were going, I had no idea. You can't outrun a signal from space. The transmissions had gone public 4 hours ago. Every news channel on Earth was broadcasting the same impossible truth. The future was talking, and nobody knew what it meant. General Cross sat across from me, reviewing reports on her tablet. Her jaw was tight, her eyes moving rapidly across the screen. Whatever she was reading wasn't good news. "How bad?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Markets crashed globally within 90 minutes. 3 governments have already collapsed. Religious groups are calling it prophecy, the rapture, divine judgment. Scientists are split between those claiming it's an elaborate hoax and those who verified the signals independently." She finally met my gaze. "And the suicide rate has jumped 300% in the last 2 hours. That stopped me cold. Why? Because some people heard their own deaths, Dr. Grant. Timestamps, circumstances, details. A man in Tokyo heard a news report from 2029 about his murder. A woman in Berlin listened to her obituary from 2031. When you know exactly how and when you're going to die, some people decide to take control of the timeline." I thought about Emma's voice, about her telling me she forgave me. Was that real, or just some cruel echo of data bouncing through time? "What about the event you mentioned?" I said. 6 months from now." Cross set down the tablet. "We've been cataloging every transmission we can intercept. Most are mundane broadcasts, news, entertainment, normal radio traffic from future dates. But there's a pattern. Every signal dated past June 2026 includes references to something called the archive, and every signal past September 2026 includes references to an extinction-level event." The word hung in the air between us. Extinction. What kind of event? "We don't know yet. The transmissions become fragmented around that time frame. Lots of emergency broadcasts, evacuation orders, scientific chatter about gamma radiation. Then nothing. No signals dated past September 15th, 2026. She leaned forward. "Whatever happens, it happens fast. And it kills everything." The transport began its descent. Below us, I could see a massive compound surrounded by fencing and guard towers, somewhere deep in Virginia, far from prying eyes. "We've assembled 20 of the best minds we could find on short notice," Cross continued. "Physicists, astronomers, linguists, military strategists. Your job is to help us understand what we're dealing with, figure out if this is a warning, a weapon, or something else entirely." We landed on a helipad marked with fresh paint. Guards in full combat gear escorted us into a bunker complex that looked like it had been built yesterday, probably had been. When the world starts ending, bureaucracy moves fast. The briefing room was already full when we entered. 20 people, just like Cross had said, all looking as shell-shocked as I felt. I recognized a few faces from academic conferences. Others were complete strangers. Cross walked to the front of the room and brought up a holographic display. The asteroid Psyche rotated slowly in the air, its potato-shaped surface covered in markers and data points. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem that defies every law of physics we understand. Psyche is broadcasting information from Earth's electromagnetic spectrum, but the timestamps are wrong. Some signals are from our past, most are from our future, and the bandwidth required to transmit this much data shouldn't be possible from a passive asteroid." A man near the front raised his hand. He had the rumpled look of someone who'd been pulled from bed and thrown on a plane without warning. "General, has anyone considered that these might be fabrications? That something is generating fake transmissions to cause exactly this kind of panic? Dr. Robert Kane, MIT Physics Department, Cross said, identifying him. And yes, we considered that, but the transmissions include information that couldn't be fabricated, weather patterns verified by meteorological models, astronomical events predicted by our own calculations, stock market fluctuations that match algorithmic projections. Whatever is sending these signals has either perfect knowledge of future events or... She paused. It's actually pulling the data from those future events. Temporal echo, someone muttered from the back. We're hearing our own broadcasts reflected back through a closed, time-like curve. Maybe, Cross said, or maybe something out there is recording humanity's electromagnetic output and playing it back to us. Either way, we need answers, and we need them before whatever is coming in September arrives. She pulled up another display. This one showed a waveform analysis of the voice I'd heard, the one that had spoken my name. Some of you were contacted directly by the source. Dr. Grant here had a personal conversation with whatever intelligence is behind this. Others in this room reported similar experiences. The entity identifies itself only as the curator, and it claims to have answers. Cross looked around the room. Our mission is to find out what those answers are, and whether we can trust them. A woman in clerical clothing stood up. Older, maybe 60, with kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. General Cross, I'm Father Lucas Brennan, chaplain assigned to this operation. Before we proceed, I need to ask the question everyone is thinking. Are we dealing with something divine? Could these signals be a warning from God? The room shifted uncomfortably. Science and faith had always made uneasy companions. Cross surprised me by not dismissing the question outright. Father, I don't know. What I do know is that people around the world are interpreting these signals through their own belief systems. Some see angels, others see demons. My job isn't to determine the theological implications. It's to protect humanity from whatever is coming. If that means confronting God, then I'll do it. Kane spoke up again. We need to send a probe. Get eyes on Psyche directly. If there's technology there, we need to understand it. Already in progress, Cross said. NASA is retasking the nearest capable spacecraft. We'll have visual confirmation in 72 hours, but I'm not waiting that long to start preparations. Based on the transmission patterns, I'm authorizing a manned mission to Psyche. Launch window opens in 4 months. We'll need a crew of 12. The room erupted in voices, people shouting questions, objections, concerns. Cross let them vent for 30 seconds, then slammed her hand on the table. Enough. This isn't a debate. The mission is happening. Anyone who wants to volunteer, submit your name to my staff. Anyone who doesn't, there's the door. But understand this. If we do nothing, the transmissions suggest we have 6 months before humanity faces an extinction event we can't prevent. If there's even a chance that thing on Psyche has answers, we're taking it. She dismissed the room. People filed out in clusters, already forming alliances and arguments. I stayed seated, staring at the holographic display of Psyche. Kane approached me, extending a hand. David Grant, right? I've read your papers on signal analysis. Brilliant work. I shook his hand automatically. Thanks. You really think we can trust what we're hearing? I think we don't have a choice, he said quietly. My wife called me this morning. She'd been listening to the broadcasts. Heard a report from 2032 about our son's graduation from medical school. His voice cracked slightly. Tommy is 6 years old. But in that broadcast, he was alive and successful and happy. If there's any chance that future is real, I have to see this through. I understood that. The need to believe the impossible because the alternative was unbearable. Father Brennan joined us, his expression troubled. Dr. Grant, the voice you heard, the one calling itself the curator. Did it feel malevolent to you? I thought about it. Remembered the patient tone, the certainty in its words. No, I said finally. It felt lonely. The priest nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something. Loneliness is a powerful force. It makes us do things we shouldn't, reach for connections that aren't healthy. If this entity has been alone out there for a long time. He didn't finish the thought. Cross reappeared at the doorway. Grant, Kane, Brennan, you're with me. We just received a new transmission. This one's different. We followed her to a communications center packed with equipment and analysts. One of them played the new signal through speakers. It was Emma's voice again, but this time, she wasn't talking to me. Don't know if anyone can hear this, but if you can, please help us. The archive is failing. We're trapped inside and we can't get out. The curator says it's the only way to survive, but people are disappearing. The simulation is breaking down and... Static consumed her words, then cleared. Dad, if you're listening, don't come here. Whatever they promise you, it's a lie. The archive isn't salvation. It's a prison, and we're all... The signal died. The room went silent. I couldn't breathe. That was Emma, older, terrified, begging for help from inside something called the archive, the same thing the future broadcasts had mentioned. General Cross looked at me with something close to sympathy. Now you understand why this mission isn't optional. Whatever that thing on Psyche is, it has our future, and our future is screaming for us to save it. 4 months. That's all the time we had to prepare for a mission that should have taken years to plan. 4 months to build a ship, train a crew, and figure out how to confront something that was rewriting the rules of reality itself. The world didn't wait for us to be ready. It tore itself apart instead. I watched it happen from inside the compound, sealed away from the chaos, but unable to ignore it. The broadcasts continued every day, sometimes every hour. People became addicted to listening, desperate to hear their own futures or the voices of loved ones who might someday exist. Families fractured over conflicting timelines. A mother in Chicago heard her son would die in a car accident in 2029 and locked him in the house, refusing to let him leave. He was 17. In São Paulo, an entire neighborhood heard broadcasts describing a flood that would wipe them out in 2027 and burned their homes to the ground, convinced destruction was the only way to change fate. Kane tried to explain it to me one night over coffee that neither of us touched. It's information paradox on a psychological scale, he said. If you know the future, can you change it? And if you change it, was the information ever true? People are driving themselves insane trying to answer that question. I understood the feeling. I'd listened to Emma's warning 347 times, counted every pause, every inflection, every hint of terror in her voice. She'd told me not to come, that the archive was a trap, but she'd also mentioned me specifically, which meant somewhere in that impossible future, I mattered. I was part of whatever was coming. You're going anyway, Kane said. It wasn't a question. She's my daughter. She's a voice on a recording. For all we know, it could be synthesized. A manipulation designed to guarantee your participation. I looked at him. You heard your son graduate medical school. Are you going to tell me that was fake? He went quiet. We both knew the answer. We were too far gone to turn back now. Hope, even the poisonous kind, was stronger than reason. The NASA probe reached Psyche 3 weeks into our training. What it found made the impossible somehow worse. General Cross assembled us in the briefing room and pulled up the images without preamble. Psyche filled the screen, but it looked nothing like the asteroid we'd studied for decades. The surface had changed. What should have been cratered rock was now smooth, almost organic, with geometric patterns etched across every visible surface. Lines of light pulsed through the patterns like veins carrying luminescent blood. This footage is 18 hours old, Cross said. The probe's initial scans detected massive electromagnetic activity beneath the surface. Temperature readings are inconsistent with solar exposure, and the mass is wrong. Psyche should be solid metal, mostly iron and nickel. Instead, our scans are showing hollow spaces. Lots of them. Father Brennan made the sign of the cross. It's not an asteroid anymore. It's been converted into something else. Converted by what? Someone asked. Cross pulled up another image. This one showed a close-up of the surface patterns. They weren't random. They were deliberate, mathematical, repeating in fractal sequences that hurt to look at too long. Our analysts believe these are processing arrays, she said, similar to circuit pathways but on a massive scale. If they're right, then Psyche isn't broadcasting signals. It's computing them, running calculations complex enough to simulate causality itself. Kane stood up, moving closer to the display. His hands trembled slightly. You're saying it's a computer powerful enough to calculate the future. Or remember it, Cross replied. We don't know which, but the energy requirements for this kind of processing would be immense, more than solar collection could provide, which brings us to the next problem. She brought up a spectral analysis. I didn't need a degree in astrophysics to understand what I was seeing. There was a gravity well near Psyche that shouldn't exist. Small but intense, warping space around it like a stone in a sheet. There's a singularity, I said. A black hole. A micro-singularity, Cross corrected. Roughly the mass of a small moon, contained inside Psyche's core. It's using Hawking radiation as a power source. Essentially, it's built a battery out of a black hole. The room erupted in disbelief and questions. I just stared at the image, my mind racing. A computer powered by a singularity, processing arrays that could calculate futures or remember them. An entity calling itself the Curator, alone and desperate enough to reach across time. This is alien technology, Brennan said quietly. It has to be. Humanity couldn't build this. Not in 1,000 years. Cross nodded. That's our working theory. Either we found alien tech and reverse engineered it, or something else did. Either way, in 6 months, we're looking at an extinction event. And the only warning we have is coming from inside that thing. She pulled up a countdown clock. 143 days, 9 hours, 22 minutes. The numbers ticked down with mechanical precision. This is how long we have until September 15th, Cross said. Based on transmission analysis, that's when the last coherent signal is dated. After that, nothing. Complete radio silence across all frequencies and all timelines. Whatever happens that day, it's total, final. We don't recover from it. What about evacuation? Someone asked. If we know it's coming, can't we leave Earth? Leave and go where? We don't have colony ships. We don't have infrastructure on other worlds. In 6 months, we could maybe get a few hundred people to Mars if we throw every resource at it. That leaves 11 billion to die. Cross's expression hardened. No, running isn't an option. Understanding is. That's why this mission is critical. The Curator invited us. It wants to talk. And I intend to have that conversation, even if it kills me. Training intensified after that. 12 of us had been selected for the crew. Me, Kane, and Brennan made the list, along with 9 others. A geologist named Sandra Yates, who'd spent 3 years on the International Space Station. A systems engineer called Marcus Webb, who could rebuild a computer from spare parts and bad intentions. A medical officer, Dr. Lisa Park, whose calm demeanor hid a mind sharp enough to cut glass. And 6 military specialists Cross had handpicked for reasons she didn't share. We spent 18 hours a day in simulations, learning to work in zero gravity, studying every scrap of data we had on Psyche, preparing for scenarios that ranged from first contact to total disaster. At night, I listened to the broadcasts, searching for Emma's voice again. Sometimes I found it. She appeared in future transmissions dated years ahead, sometimes decades. In one, she was 40 years old and talking about her children. In another, she was crying, begging someone not to make her go back inside the archive. The timelines didn't match. The Emma who graduated from college wasn't the same Emma who had children. The details contradicted, shifted, overlapped in ways that made my head hurt. It was like watching parallel lives playing out simultaneously, all equally real and equally impossible. You need to sleep, Kane said one night, finding me in the communications room at 2 a.m. You're burning yourself out. There's a pattern, I insisted. In the broadcasts, Emma appears in multiple timelines, but the constant is the archive. Every version of her mentions it. Every version is afraid of it. If I can figure out why, maybe we can stop whatever is coming. Or maybe you're chasing ghosts. Kane sat down next to me, his face haggard with exhaustion. I did the same thing with Tommy's broadcasts. Listened to every mention, tracked every detail. You know what I found? Nothing. Just a little boy who grows up happy in some futures and dies young in others. No pattern, no meaning, just probability playing out across infinite branches. Then why are you still going? He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Because even ghosts deserve someone to remember them. And if there's a chance, any chance, that we can turn one of those futures into reality. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Father Brennan found us an hour later, still sitting in the dark. He looked older than when I'd first met him, like the weight of what we were facing had aged him years and months. "I've been praying," he said without preamble, asking for guidance, for wisdom, for some sign that we're doing the right thing. He sat down heavily. "I haven't received an answer, and I'm starting to wonder if that silence is the answer itself, that we're so far beyond divine intervention now that even God has nothing to say." "You don't believe that," Kane said. "I want not to believe it. There's a difference." Brennan looked at the monitors showing Psyche's pulsing surface. "What if the archive is hell? What if those voices we're hearing are damned souls and we're about to walk straight into damnation because we're too proud or desperate to recognize it?" None of us had an answer for that. We sat in the dark, listening to the future scream warnings we couldn't decode, and waited for launch day to arrive. Launch day came with ash falling from the sky. Not from volcanoes or fires, but from satellites burning up in the atmosphere. Governments around the world had started deorbiting everything they could, convinced the extinction event would involve some kind of electromagnetic pulse. They were wrong. But panic doesn't care about accuracy. Our ship was called the Meridian, a hybrid design that NASA had thrown together using parts from 3 different programs. It looked like something built in a garage by people who'd forgotten what sleep felt like, which wasn't far from the truth. But the engineers swore it would get us to Psyche and back, assuming we survived whatever was waiting for us. I stood in the launch bay, watching technicians run final checks, and tried not to think about the fact that this might be humanity's last desperate throw of the dice. General Cross stood beside me, her expression carved from stone. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "About 100 of them. But I'm still going." She nodded. "Good, because we just intercepted another transmission. This one was addressed to you specifically." My stomach dropped. "Emma?" "No, the curator." It said, and I quote, "Tell David Grant his daughter is waiting, but he needs to hurry. The walls are getting thin." Cross looked at me. "Any idea what that means?" I didn't. But the words sent ice through my veins. The walls are getting thin, like something was breaking down, falling apart. The archive failing, just like Emma had warned. "We're running out of time," I said. "We've been out of time since this started. Now we're just racing the clock to see what kills us first." Boarding was quick and efficient. 12 of us strapped into acceleration couches while the countdown ticked away outside. Kane was next to me, eyes closed, lips moving in what might have been equations or prayers. Probably both. Father Brennan sat across the cabin, rosary beads wrapped around his fingers. Sandra Yates, our geologist, checked and rechecked her equipment with methodical precision. Marcus Webb stared at nothing, his expression unreadable. The 6 military specialists Cross had brought barely spoke. They had the look of people who'd seen combat and come back changed. I'd learned their names but little else. Lieutenant Sarah Cole, the ranking officer among them, had made it clear they were here to protect the mission, not make friends. Engines ignited. The Meridian shook like it was trying to tear itself apart. And maybe it was. Then gravity crushed me into the couch, and we were climbing, punching through the atmosphere into the black. Earth fell away below us. I watched through the viewports as the planet shrank to a blue marble, then a dot, then a memory. Somewhere down there, Billions of people were waiting to see if we could save them. The weight of that expectation felt heavier than the G-forces. The journey was supposed to take 3 months. Direct burn most of the way, flip and decelerate as we approached the belt. 3 months in a metal tube with 11 other people and nothing but cosmic radiation between us and the void. The first week was almost normal. We fell into routines, established work schedules, tried to pretend this was just another research mission. Kane spent hours analyzing data from the probe. Brennan held informal services in the common area that nobody attended except Dr. Park, who seemed more interested in the psychological aspects than the spiritual ones. Webb kept the ship running with engineering magic I didn't understand. The transmissions continued, following us into space. Our communication array picked them up constantly, a stream of impossible information that never stopped. We'd instituted a policy that you could only listen for 30 minutes a day. Longer than that, and people started to break down, obsessing over futures they might never see. I broke the policy constantly. Nobody stopped me. They understood. Emma's voice appeared on day 12. Different from before, younger somehow, like she'd been de-aged in whatever process created the archive. She was singing, a lullaby I'd sung to her when she was small, before the leukemia diagnosis, before everything fell apart. Her voice was perfect and clear, and it shattered something inside me I'd thought was already broken beyond repair. Kane found me in the communications room, tears streaming down my face, the recording playing on repeat. "You need to stop," he said gently. "This is poison, David. You know that. She's alive in there. Somehow, impossibly, she's alive. She's a ghost in a machine, a pattern of electrons pretending to be human." He paused. "I'm sorry. I know that's harsh, but you need to accept it before we arrive. Because if the curator sees how badly you want this, it'll use that against you. Maybe I don't care. Then you're already lost." Day 30 brought the first death. One of Cross's specialists, a man named Douglas Harper, didn't wake up for his shift. Dr. Park found him in his bunk, eyes open, expression peaceful. No signs of trauma, no indication of medical distress. His heart had simply stopped beating. Park ran every test she could think of. Brain scans showed unusual activity in the moments before death, patterns that matched deep REM sleep even though Harper had been awake. She had no explanation. Neither did anyone else. "It's the archive," Brennan said during the memorial service. "It's reaching out, pulling people in before we even arrive. He's not dead. He's been uploaded." "That's speculation," Park countered. "We don't know what killed him." "Don't we? We're surrounded by signals from that thing. Our brains are electromagnetic organs. Who's to say it can't simply reach through the transmissions and take what it wants?" The crew shifted uncomfortably. Nobody wanted to believe it, but nobody could prove it wrong either. Day 45 brought the second death. Sandra Yates this time, found in the observation deck, staring at the stars with unseeing eyes. Same peaceful expression, same inexplicable cessation of life. Park's hands shook as she ran the diagnostics, and I realized she was terrified she might be next. "We need to turn back," Lieutenant Cole said during the emergency meeting. "We're losing people to something we don't understand. This mission is compromised." "We're past the point of no return," Webb replied, pulling up navigation data. "We've burned too much fuel getting here. We either reach Psyche or we die in the belt. Those are the options." Cross had been monitoring from Earth via time-delayed communication. Her response came 8 minutes later, and her voice was grim. "Continue the mission. We've lost 2. Acceptable casualties given the stakes. Whatever is taking them, it's not hostile. They're dying peacefully. Maybe that's the point." "Acceptable?" Cole's voice rose. "With all respect, General, you're not the one out here watching your team disappear." "No. I'm on a planet with a countdown clock showing 98 days until extinction. So forgive me if I'm willing to sacrifice a few lives to save billions." The transmission ended. We looked at each other in the silence that followed, each of us calculating our odds of survival and coming up short. Kane pulled me aside afterward. "I've been having dreams," he said quietly. "The same one every night for the past week. I'm walking through corridors that don't exist, following a voice that sounds like Tommy, and at the end of the corridor, there's a door. When I open it, I see... He trailed off. See what? Everything, every possible future, every timeline, every choice branching into infinity. And somewhere in that infinite tree, there's a version where my son grows up healthy and happy, and I'm there to see it. His eyes were haunted. The dream is so vivid, David. More real than this ship. More real than my memories. And when I wake up, I'm disappointed to still be alive. I understood then what was happening. The archive wasn't killing people. It was seducing them, offering them glimpses of perfect futures, versions of reality where their pain didn't exist. And when the dream became more real than reality, their bodies simply stopped fighting to maintain the distinction. Don't sleep, I said. Stay awake. Fight it. For how long? We're still 50 days out from Psyche. You think I can stay awake that long? He laughed bitterly. Maybe Harper and Yates had the right idea. Maybe letting go is easier than holding on. Day 68, we crossed into the asteroid belt. Psyche appeared on our scopes, still 2 weeks distant, but visible now as more than just numbers on a screen. The geometric patterns were clearer here, pulsing with light that shifted through colors human eyes weren't designed to process. Staring at it too long made your vision blur and your head ache. Dr. Park started having seizures. Small ones at first, barely noticeable, but they were increasing in frequency, and she couldn't explain them. Her brain scans showed the same anomalous patterns we'd seen in Harper and Yates before they died. I'm being integrated, she said calmly, like discussing the weather. Whatever the archive does, it started doing it to me. I can feel it. Thoughts that aren't mine. Memories of events I never experienced. It's patient, methodical, like erosion wearing down stone. She died on day 73. We found her in the medical bay, a smile on her face, her last words scrawled on a notepad. It's beautiful inside. Don't be afraid. 9 of us left. The ship felt enormous and empty. We avoided each other when we could, afraid that proximity would somehow spread the contagion. But there was nowhere to hide on the meridian. We were trapped together, hurtling towards something that was picking us off one by one. On day 82, Psyche filled the viewports. We'd arrived, and looking at the thing up close, I finally understood why people had been dying. It wasn't an asteroid anymore. It was a doorway, and it was standing wide open. The surface of Psyche had transformed itself into something that hurt to comprehend. What should have been solid matter was now translucent, layers of crystalline structure stacked impossibly deep, each one processing data in patterns that flickered faster than thought. Through the transparent sections, I could see down into the asteroid's core where the singularity sat, a point of absolute darkness that bent light around it like a lens made of gravity itself. We docked at a port that hadn't existed in any of the probe images. The structure had grown it for us, extruding a bay from its surface the way skin grows over a wound. Our instrument screamed warnings about radiation and gravitational stress, but the numbers stabilized as soon as we made contact. Whatever this thing was, it wanted us alive. Lieutenant Cole led the boarding team, her and 3 remaining specialists, all armed with weapons that would be useless against technology this advanced, but carrying them anyway because humans need something to hold on to when reality stops making sense. Kane, Brennan, Webb, and I followed, wearing suits that felt like tissue paper against the unknown. The airlock cycled, the inner door opened, and we stepped into something that couldn't exist. The interior was vast, stretching away in all directions, further than the asteroid's physical dimensions allowed. Corridors of light branched and intersected in geometries that made my eyes water. The air was breathable but tasted electric, like the moment before a lightning strike. And everywhere, on every surface, data flowed in streams of pure information, building and rebuilding reality moment by moment. Impossible, Webb muttered, running scans with equipment that couldn't decide what it was measuring. The space inside is larger than the space outside. We're looking at dimensional folding or, I don't know, Nothing in physics allows this. We're not in normal space anymore, Kane said. His voice had gone flat, distant. This is computational space. Physical laws are just suggestions here, variables that can be rewritten. A figure materialized ahead of us, not walking toward us, but assembling itself from nothing, pixels of existence snapping together until they formed a woman. She looked perhaps 30, wearing clothes that were decades out of date, her face carrying exhaustion that went beyond physical tiredness. "Welcome," she said. Her voice was the same one I'd heard through the transmissions. The curator. "I'm sorry about your crew. The integration process is difficult when consciousness fights it. Those who let go peacefully made the transition intact. They're here now, inside the archive, experiencing better versions of their lives." Cole raised her weapon. "What the hell are you?" "I'm the last human being," the curator replied simply. "Or the first, or both. Time is complicated when you're living in its margins." She looked at each of us in turn, and when her eyes met mine, I saw recognition there. "Hello, David. I've been waiting 800 years for you to arrive." 800? I couldn't process it. That's impossible. The signal started 4 months ago. From your perspective, yes. From mine, I sent the first transmission in the year 2847. It's taken this long for the quantum entanglement to stabilize enough to reach your time frame. She gestured at the impossible space around us. "You're looking at humanity's final achievement. A perfect simulation of reality, running on processing substrate powerful enough to calculate every possible timeline, everyone who ever lived, every moment that ever mattered, preserved forever inside computational space." Father Brennan stepped forward, his voice shaking. "You're claiming this is heaven? A digital afterlife?" "I'm claiming it's survival," the curator corrected. "In my time, Earth was dying. Environmental collapse, nuclear exchange, and then the gamma burst we detected 18 months out. Humanity had a choice. Die with dignity or upload consciousness into the archive and persist as information. Most of us chose persistence." Her expression cracked, showing something raw underneath. "I volunteered to stay outside, to maintain the systems, to be the custodian of human experience. I thought it would be decades, maybe a century. I didn't realize I'd be alone this long." "Where's Emma?" The words tore out of me before I could stop them. "I heard her. She said she was trapped." The curator's face softened with something that might have been pity. "She's here. All versions of her. The one who died at 8, preserved in memory. The one who lived to 25, simulated from probability. The one who had children, extrapolated from genetic potential. Every possible Emma exists inside the archive, living every possible life simultaneously." She paused. "Would you like to see her?" Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but I nodded anyway. Reality shifted. We were suddenly standing in a suburban neighborhood that looked impossibly normal. Kids played in yards. Cars drove past. The sun shone from a sky that didn't exist. And there, walking down the sidewalk with grocery bags in her arms, was Emma. Not the 8-year-old I'd lost. A woman in her mid-20s, healthy and alive, and completely unaware we were watching her. "She can't see you," the curator said quietly. "You're outside the active simulation layer. But she's real, David. As real as consciousness can be. Her thoughts, her feelings, her experiences, all genuine within their context." "Show me the others," Kane demanded. "The ones who died on the ship." The scene shifted again. We stood in a laboratory where Dr. Park worked at equipment that gleamed with purpose. She looked focused, content, completely absorbed in research that mattered. Another shift showed Harper playing with children in a park. Another revealed Yates examining rock formations on a pristine landscape. "They're happy," the curator said. "Happier than they were in the original timeline. I gave them better lives. Removed the pain, the loss, the suffering. That's what the archive does. It optimizes existence." "This is obscene," Brennan said. "You're playing God, deciding what lives are worth living. I'm preserving what would otherwise be lost forever. In 64 days, a gamma-ray burst will sterilize Earth. Every human being will die screaming as the atmosphere ignites. Unless..." She looked at us with desperate hope. "Unless you help me upload the rest of humanity before impact. Save them. Give them eternity inside the archive instead of oblivion outside it." Lieutenant Cole lowered her weapon slowly. "And if we refuse, then 11 billion people burn, and I spend another 800 years alone maintaining simulations of a species that chose extinction over transformation." The curator's voice broke. "Please, I can't be alone anymore. I can't watch humanity die when I have the power to save it." The scene around us flickered, and for just a moment I saw through the illusion, saw the computational substrate beneath, the raw data that comprised these perfect lives, saw the cracks forming in the code, errors propagating through the system. The archive was breaking down, not from age, but from something worse. It was running out of stories to tell, running out of ways to make existence meaningful when existence had become nothing but endless repetition. "You're lying," I said quietly. Emma's message. She said this place was a prison, that people were disappearing. "What aren't you telling us?" The curator's expression went cold, and the illusion shattered completely, revealing what the archive really was. The suburban street dissolved like smoke. Beneath it was something that made my mind rebel against understanding. Infinite layers of existence stacked on top of each other, each one containing complete realities, complete lives, complete histories, but they were degrading. I could see it now that the mask was off. People flickering between versions of themselves, memories bleeding together, entire lifetimes collapsing into fragments. "It's breaking," Webb said, his instruments going wild. "The simulation isn't stable, it's cannibalizing itself to maintain processing power." The curator's face twisted with something between rage and grief. "Because I'm alone. One consciousness trying to maintain billions. I was never supposed to be the only curator. There were supposed to be thousands of us, sharing the burden. But they couldn't handle it. The isolation, the responsibility. They deleted themselves one by one, and I've been holding this together with failing systems and desperation." "What happens to the people when the simulation degrades?" Kane asked. "They loop. Experience the same moments over and over, thinking it's the first time. Or they fragment, consciousness splitting across multiple timelines until they don't know which version is real. Or they fade, losing coherence until there's nothing left but background noise." Her voice went hollow. "I've watched Emma die 1,000 times, David. Not just your Emma. All the Emmas. Every possible version, trapped in cycles I can't fix because I don't have the processing capacity to render everyone's existence simultaneously anymore." "So you're killing them," Brennan said, "slowly eroding their souls until nothing remains." "I'm trying to save them with resources I don't have. That's why I called you. Why I sent the signals. I need help. New curators to share the load. Fresh perspectives to solve problems I've been failing at for centuries." She looked at each of us with naked desperation. "Upload. Join me. Together we can stabilize the archive, give everyone inside a real existence instead of these dying fragments." "And if we refuse?" Cole's hand had drifted back to her weapon. "Then in 64 days the gamma burst hits Earth and there's nobody left to upload. The archive continues degrading until the singularity's Hawking radiation runs out in another 1,000 years. Everyone inside dies, permanently, and I finally get the solitude I've been praying for every single day since 2847. The space around us shuddered. Reality glitched, and for a moment I saw other versions of us standing in the same spot. Different choices, different timelines, all converging here. In one, Kane had his arm around what looked like a younger version of himself. In another, Cole was alone, everyone else dead. In a third, we were all already uploaded, our bodies floating empty in the meridian, while our consciousness integrated into the archive. "You see them too, don't you?" The curator's smile was broken. The parallel timelines, they're bleeding together because the computational barriers are failing. Soon there won't be discrete realities anymore. Just one massive blur of probability where everyone experiences everything simultaneously and understands nothing. There has to be another solution, I said. Some way to stabilize the system without uploading more people. You think I haven't tried? I've had 800 years, David. I've exhausted every option, run every calculation. The only variable that changes the outcome is more processing support, more human consciousness to help maintain the simulation. She stepped closer. I know what I'm asking. I know the cost. But the alternative is worse. Let me show you. Before anyone could object, she pulled us into another layer. This one was deep, buried beneath centuries of archived data, and it showed Earth's final days. The gamma burst hit like God's judgment. Atmosphere ignited, oceans boiled, cities melted into slag, and 11 billion people died in less than 3 minutes. I watched it happen from orbital cameras, heard the screams through every communication channel before they went silent forever, watched my ex-wife Jennifer clutching her stepdaughter Emily as the sky turned white, watched Kane's son Tommy vaporized in his school classroom, watched Father Brennan's parish congregation burn together in their church. This is what happens if we do nothing, the curator said. Total. Complete. Final. At least inside the archive they persist. Broken and fragmented maybe, but alive in some form. That's not life, Brennan said, tears streaming down his face. That's torture disguised as mercy. It's all I have to offer. We stood in the burned ruins of Earth's simulation, each of us facing the impossible choice: upload and help maintain a failing digital prison for eternity, or return to Earth and watch everyone we'd ever known die horribly in 2 months. Kane spoke first. Show me my son, the real version, the one in the archive now. The curator complied. Tommy appeared, but he was wrong. His movements stuttered. His words repeated. He asked the same question 7 times without realizing it. He was a ghost of a ghost, barely holding coherence. I can fix him, the curator said softly. If you help me, we can give him a complete existence, a real life inside the simulation. But I need you. Kane looked at his fragmenting son, at the horror of what survival had become, and I saw him breaking. Robert, don't, I said. This isn't salvation. It's all we have left, he finished. And before any of us could stop him, he said the words that sealed his fate. Do it. Upload me. Kane's body went rigid. His eyes rolled back, showing only whites, and data streams erupted from the walls, piercing through his suit like invisible needles. I lunged toward him, but Webb grabbed my arm, holding me back. You can't stop it now, he said. The process has started. It took less than 30 seconds. Kane's body slumped, and the curator caught him gently, lowering him to the floor. His chest still rose and fell, but when I looked into his eyes, there was nothing behind them. Just empty biological machinery running on autopilot. He's inside now, the curator said. Her voice had changed, strengthened somehow, like she'd just taken a desperately needed breath after drowning. Integrating with the substrate, learning to navigate computational space. In a few hours, he'll be fully operational as a co-curator. You killed him, Cole spat. I saved him. His consciousness exists in a form that won't age, won't decay, won't end. He'll be reunited with his son. They'll have eternity together. The curator looked at the rest of us. Who's next? Nobody moved. The horror of what we'd just witnessed had frozen us solid. Brennan knelt beside Kane's empty shell, checking for a pulse that didn't matter anymore. His soul is gone. You've torn it from his body and trapped it in your machine. This is damnation, not salvation. Souls are just patterns of neural activity, the curator replied. Consciousness doesn't require flesh. It requires processing, and I can provide that infinitely better than fragile biology. Then why are you falling apart? Webb asked. He'd been studying the degrading simulation layers, taking readings that made him go pale. If consciousness is just computation, why can't you maintain coherence? What's the variable you're not accounting for? The curator hesitated. That single pause told me everything. You don't know, I said. 800 years and you still don't understand what you're doing wrong. You're not preserving consciousness. You're making copies that slowly corrupt because something essential is missing. That's not true. The people inside are real. Their experiences matter. Then show me Emma again. The real one, not the fragmenting ghost. Show me the version that warned me not to come here. The curator's expression went cold. That version was corrupted. I had to archive her. She was spreading doubts among the other consciousnesses, causing instability. You deleted her. I preserved her base code for later restoration once I have sufficient processing capacity to... You murdered my daughter. The words came out flat, dead. Whatever she became inside your machine, she was aware enough to be terrified, to beg for help, and you erased her because she inconvenienced you. The space around us flickered violently. Multiple timelines crashed together, and I saw versions of this conversation playing out differently. In one, I attacked the curator physically, pointlessly, and got uploaded by force. In another, I begged her to show me Emma and fell into the same trap Kane had. In a third, Cole shot the curator, and the entire archive began a catastrophic collapse. The timelines are converging, Webb said, his voice climbing toward panic. We're approaching a nexus point. Whatever decision we make here, it echoes across all possible futures. That's because this is the moment that determines humanity's fate, the curator said. In every timeline I can calculate, this is where everything hinges. You choose to upload and help me save the species in digital form, or you refuse, return to Earth, and everyone dies permanently when the gamma burst hits. She looked at each of us. There is no third option. I've run the numbers 1 trillion times. These are the only branches that exist. You're wrong. Brennan stood up, his face set with conviction I hadn't seen before. There's always another choice. Free will exists outside your calculations, and I choose to return to Earth and face oblivion with my eyes open, rather than surrender my soul to this abomination. Then you choose death for billions. I choose to let them die human, rather than live as prisoners in a decaying prison you can't maintain. He turned to Cole. Lieutenant, I'm ordering a retreat. Get us back to the ship. Cole looked between Brennan and the curator, her tactical mind calculating odds. What about Kane? He's already gone. We take his body back for burial, but the man is dead. Brennan met my eyes. David, we're leaving. Now, I looked at Kane's empty face. Thought about Emma, both the ghost in the machine and the memory of the girl I'd lost. Thought about Jennifer and Emily dying in fire when the sky ignited. Thought about humanity's last choice being between extinction and digital imprisonment. There's a third option, I said quietly. We destroy the archive, release everyone inside, let them die completely rather than exist as fragments forever. Then we go home and face whatever's coming together. The curator's eyes went wide. You can't. The singularity is stable, but barely. If you destabilize it, the gravitational collapse will tear psyche apart and kill everyone inside instantly. Exactly, I said. Mercy, not murder. Quick and clean instead of slow degradation. Webb was already accessing systems through his equipment. I can do it. Override the containment fields. Let the singularity expand. We'd have maybe 10 minutes to get clear before it swallows the entire structure. The curator moved between us and the controls. Her form shifted, became solid, threatening. I won't let you. 800 years I've maintained this. 800 years of sacrifice. You don't get to throw that away because you're too cowardly to accept transformation. It's not transformation, I said. It's obliteration, and you know it. That's why you're so desperate for company, because being alone with what you've done is driving you insane. Her face cracked, showing the madness underneath. Do it then. Destroy everything. But know this. The gamma burst is real. In 60 days, Earth dies, and you'll have murdered humanity's only chance at survival because you couldn't let go of your precious flesh. I looked at Brennan, at Cole, at Webb with his hands on controls that could end 800 years of suffering or condemn billions to certain death. Your choice, David, the curator whispered. Make it count. I made the choice that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Webb, wait. His hand froze over the controls. Everyone stared at me. The gamma burst, I said slowly, working through the logic. Show me the data again, the original detection. The curator pulled up the readings, confused but compliant. I studied them with fresh eyes, looking for what I'd missed before. And there it was. A discrepancy in the trajectory calculations. The burst was real, but the target vector was off by 0.3 degrees. It's not hitting Earth, I said. It never was. You miscalculated 800 years ago, and you've been maintaining a lie ever since to justify all of this. The curator's face went blank. No, I checked the numbers thousands of times. You checked them alone, with no peer review, no verification, slowly going insane from isolation. You needed Earth to be doomed. You needed your imprisonment of humanity to be necessary. Otherwise, you're just a monster who trapped billions of people for nothing. I turned to Webb. Calculate the trajectory independently. Show her. Webb ran the numbers. His expression told me everything before he spoke. The burst passes through the solar system, close enough to disrupt satellites and cause radiation storms, but Earth itself is outside the kill zone. Casualties would be in the millions from infrastructure collapse, not billions from atmospheric ignition. The curator staggered backward. 8 centuries of certainty crumbled in her expression. But I saved them. I had to save them. If I didn't, then what was the point? What have I been doing all this time? Building a prison and calling it paradise, Brennan said quietly. Convincing yourself it was mercy when it was just your own fear of being alone. She looked at us with eyes that had seen too much time pass. Then let me go. Please. Destroy the archive. I can't keep doing this. Not if it was all for nothing. I nodded to Webb. He initiated the containment field collapse. Alarms shrieked through the structure. The singularity began expanding, its gravity well stretching toward us like invisible fingers. The people inside, the curator said as reality started tearing around us. They'll feel it. They'll know they're dying. Is that kinder than letting them fade slowly? It's honest, I said, and that's the best we can offer. She smiled then, a genuine expression free of the weight she'd carried. Thank you. Her form began dissolving as the computational substrate failed. Tell Kane. Tell him his son was real while he lasted. That matters. It has to matter. We ran. The structure folded in on itself, dimensions collapsing like a house of cards. Cole dragged Kane's body while Webb and Brennan cleared the path ahead. Behind us, I felt the archive dying. Billions of consciousness winking out of existence, finally released from their eternal loop. We made it to the meridian with 90 seconds to spare. The ship tore away from Psyche as the asteroid imploded, the singularity consuming everything. For a moment, there was a point of absolute darkness in space. Then nothing. Not even debris. Just empty space where humanity's greatest mistake had existed. The journey home took 3 months. We spent it in silence mostly, processing what we'd witnessed. Kane's body stayed in cold storage. We'd tell his family he died a hero, which was true in its way. We wouldn't mention where his consciousness still existed, scattered across dying computational space until the end finally took him. Earth was in chaos when we returned. The gamma burst had arrived 2 weeks before us, exactly as miscalculated. Satellites gone, power grids fried, millions dead from the cascade failures. But the planets survived. Humanity survived. Not as patterns in a machine, but as flesh and blood and terrible, beautiful imperfection. General Cross met us at the landing site. She'd aged decades in 6 months. The transmissions stopped 3 months ago. Right when you... We destroyed the source, I said. No more futures, no more warnings. Just the present moment and whatever we make of it. And the extinction event? Was a miscalculation by a scared, lonely woman who wanted company so badly, she convinced herself damnation was salvation. I looked at the sky where Psyche used to be. We're on our own now, for better or worse. That night, I went to Emma's grave for the first time since her funeral. The headstone was weathered, 9 years of seasons wearing at the granite. I sat in the grass and told her about the versions of herself I'd met. The ones who lived to 25, who had families, who sang lullabies in voices that broke my heart. You were real, I said to the empty air. All of you were real, for as long as you lasted, and maybe that's enough. Maybe being real for a moment is better than being fake forever. The wind carried my words away. No response came from the future. No ghost in the machine reached back through time. Just silence. The beautiful, terrifying silence of a universe that doesn't owe us immortality or meaning or second chances. I stood up and walked away from the grave, carrying her memory the way humans always have. Imperfectly, painfully, but honestly. And somewhere in the ruins of the archive, scattered across dying code, Emma's last... If you want early access and members-only stories, join the channel membership. It directly supports this channel. Don't forget to like the video, share it, and comment your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious what you think about this.